And I'm back with another review of a MonsterVerse movie, in which today I'm talking about Kong Skull Island, in which this movie centers on Kong. He's not yet king, but he's a king in my heart as far as I'm concerned. And just like Godzilla 2014, I reviewed Kong Skull Island back in 2021 in prep for Godzilla vs. Kong. So before I give a more in-depth review of this movie, let's go to the Lassiter Factor archives. Continuing my MonsterVerse marathon, I watched Kong Skull Island. I remember when this film came out and everybody criticized this film for having weak characters, and I felt, you really going to a movie about a giant gorilla expecting rich characters? And 4 years later since that film came out, I still feel that way. Is it a perfect film? No, but is it an entertaining film? Yes. It's an entertaining film that introduces Kong and his world into the MonsterVerse through the lens of the 70s in the Vietnam War. I always felt Kong is at his best when he is in his element, which is Skull Island, and I felt this film gave me that. And for that, I give Kong Skull Island the thumbs up emoji. Generally speaking, I agree with most of that review, but is my rating different? We'll see. But yeah, like back when this movie came out, I did not understand the hate this movie was getting. Everybody was saying that the characters are poor, and they're not great, and they're not written well. And like I said in my original review, you really went into a movie about King Kong expecting rich characters. Now granted, in the Peter Jackson version and some of the original Kong movies, there were some rich characters, but again, this movie is in the context of the MonsterVerse with Godzilla, and like I said, I feel like Kong, he is at his best when he is in his element, which is Skull Island. And I love that this movie focuses on that. Like, this entire movie is an adventure film on Skull Island and them discovering Kong and all the monsters he has to endure while he's on this planet. And to me, that made for a fun film. And the John C. Reilly character, I felt he was basically our window into Skull Island because he was in World War II. They end up on this island and they end up getting stuck there for decades. And so he learned to adapt with the locals, and he learned to adapt with everything that is going on this island, so that when more people end up on this island, he's pretty much your tour guide, and he's pretty much your window into Skull Island. And also, just like Godzilla 2014, I also felt this movie is a lot better through the lens of the Monarch TV series, and more specifically, the Bill Randa character, which the Monarch show focused on the most. And I felt this movie really benefit from Monarch because it bridged a gap between that movie and everything else that happens in this world. Now, Bill Randa, who was played by John Goodman in this movie, he's also good, but I also felt this character, he was a little bit nefarious. Like, you really didn't, as far as the characters goes, I will say he was the least developed. I mean, I know he works for Monarch, but luckily the show Monarch, they actually go even further into his character and why he's doing what he's doing. And it also helps with the history before this movie for you to understand Bill Randa. Let's play a game called Where These Actors Have Also Worked With Each Other. And let's start with the obvious one, in which you have Samuel Jackson, Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson, Corey Hawkins, and even Shea Whigham, who have all been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, either as a major character or even a small role. Obviously, Tom Hiddleston, Loki, Sam Jackson, Nick Fury, Brie Larson, Captain Marvel, and the Marvels. Shea Whigham, he was on an episode of, I think it was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Agent Carter, it was one of the two, but either way, he was on one of the Marvel TV shows under ABC. Corey Hawkins, he had a very, very, very small role in Iron Man 3. John C. Reilly, he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. Speaking of Shea Whigham, him and John Ortiz, they were in the Fast and the Furious. They were both in multiple Fast and Furious movies together, but they didn't share any screen time. But more specifically, they both started in the fourth Fast and Furious movie. Then they returned in Fast and Furious 6, and then Shea Whigham, he returned in Fast 9. John C. Reilly and Thomas Mann, they worked with each other on Winning Time. And finally, Corey Hawkins and Jason Mitchell, they worked with each other on Straight Outta Compton. Damn, this is a very expensive cast. But generally speaking, all the cast, there wasn't really much to them. I mean, yeah, these characters are kind of weak, but at the same time, they're just there to serve the story. They're there to be your tour guide through Skull Island. Tom Hiddleston, he's kind of a tour guide that's good at what he does. Brie Larson takes pictures. And then everybody else are just soldiers, and they're either red shirts or they survive in the end. Like I said, I feel like John Goodman's character, John C. Wiley's character were the stronger characters, but also Samuel Jackson, because he's pretty much the sergeant of everybody that ends up on Skull Island, and you can tell like he's just stuck in that militant mindset. Like if he's not at war, he has nothing. And so it's just hilariously intriguing when they first get attacked by Kong. He's like, oh, this is a problem that needs to be taken care of. And I just like the stare down between the two of them. I mean, when Kong and Samuel Jackson are staring at each other, I mean, Sam Jackson, he might as well have just said, I'll get you, bitch. Now, as for Kong himself, he is taller than any other Kong we've had in any other movie. It was a great introduction to this version of Kong. I like that they didn't really go with the Beauty and the Beast angle, even though Brie Larson, she was in this movie, but they kind of hinted at it here or there, and it also falls into somewhat of the humanity within Kong, so that when you see him in Kong Skull Island interacting with the deaf girl, you believe it. And I just like how Kong, he's just this force of nature on Skull Island that basically keeps that island's ecosystem in check and keeps balance in check. And there's even hints at the Hollow Earth in this movie, which this time around I never really caught, especially with the context of Godzilla versus Kong, and that they hinted here and there. They were trying to present that idea so that when it happens in that movie, it's not too far-fetched. And the skull crawlers that Kong fights in this movie, they come from the Hollow Earth. In the end, I know people have problems with this movie, but for me personally, this movie gave me exactly what I wanted. Just a fun adventure monster movie. Beforehand, I gave Kong Skull Island the thumbs up emoji, but now I am bumping it up to the heart eyes emoji.